A pleasant morning to our valued customers and business partners. Welcome to the Meralco Power Up Live webinar entitled Keep the Economy Going, a short-term power supply outlook and supporting the Department of Energy's Interruptible Load Program. I am Mark Wilson C., Meralco Relationship Manager handling conglomerates like SM and Walter Mart. On behalf of Meralco, we would like to thank you for your support the past year. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly impacted us in ways most of us did not expect. And we thank you for your continued patience, support, and collaboration. We hope that through this webinar, we will be able to update you on the power supply outlook for the upcoming months, how this may impact your businesses, and how we can help each other power through. For the house rules, throughout this webinar, feel free to type your questions and comments. We encourage you to identify yourselves so we can acknowledge you properly. We will try our best to pose and answer all of your questions during the Q&A session later. Please avoid posting details such as your SIN, address, mobile number, and others. And since it is summertime and we've been experiencing heat indexes of up to 38 degrees Celsius, please ensure that you are streaming from a comfortable and cool area, or ensure that you keep yourself hydrated so that you can stay with us until the end of this webinar. And now, to formally start, let us hear from Ms. Cecil Domingo, Vice President and Head of Meralco Corporate Business Group.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning and a pleasant day to all of you, our partners in nation building. I hope that you, your businesses, and most of all your families are keeping safe as we continue to face and fight this pandemic. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge the presence of our key presenter today from the Department of Energy, Engineer Mark Maroliano, Head and Senior Science Research Specialist of the Department of Energy's Power Generation Supply Development and Monitoring Section, and our senior executives representing their organizations today. Engineer Charles Singson, Assistant Vice President, SM Engineering Design and Development. Welcome back to Meralco event, Engineer Charles. Mr. Martin Shongkun, Vice President, Robinson's Retail Holdings, Inc. Mr. Jeric Oyong, Assistant Vice President, Manila Cordage Company. Attorney Romel Yap from RESA, or Retail Electricity Supplier Association. I think we have more than 200 attendees and counting now. So thank you everyone for joining us today at our Power Up Live webinar, wherein we will share with you our country's power supply situation and outlook, and how this will impact our business operations and ways of working together. I'm glad Mark reminded us earlier to keep hydrated given the rising temperatures and heat index as indicated by Pag-asa's weather forecast. These summer months will definitely be warmer than usual, and we can only expect more energy usage in our businesses and most likely in our homes, as many of us are still working from home or have started home businesses. And these are all the more reasons we felt it necessary to provide you with an update on the power supply status. But still, the greatest threat is the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll have to learn to live with COVID-19 for another 2 to 3 years. But it does not mean we should lose heart. There's always hope for as long as we believe that by coming together as a people and with the power of the Almighty God, we will overcome the challenges that are before us. Vaccines are arriving increasingly in numbers. Hope is at our doorsteps. I take pride that the spirit of true bayanihan lives on when we need it the most. We continue to come together to help each other, especially those in need, through nationwide community pantries, medical donations, and other small efforts that make big differences. COVID-19 has also brought out the best in us, which brings us back to why we have invited you all here today. In the spirit of bayanihan, we wish to provide an update on the power supply situation and how we can anticipate and mitigate any challenges that this may bring. We want to avoid potential power supply challenges to be another burden on all of us in addition to fighting this pandemic. We understand that these are extraordinary times. Alam nating lahat yan. So I encourage you to ask all your questions to our speakers. We're also here to listen to you, address your concerns and inquiries, and ultimately, we want to continue bring your part to being your partner in navigating through this new world. Maraming salamat po, and may we have a productive session today, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Ms. Cecil, for that meaningful speech. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of RESA President, Mr. Warren Belvis. Moving along with the program, our first speaker will give you a preview of the power supply forecast and its potential impact to all your business operations. Let us all welcome on screen Engineer Mark Christian Maroliano, Head and Senior Science Research Specialist, Power Generation Supply Development and Monitoring Section of Department of Energy.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for the introduction. Um, on behalf of our officials, led by our secretary from the Department of Energy, Secretary Alfonso G. Cusi, and our director from the Electric Power Industry Management Bureau, Director Mario C. Marsigan, I'm pleased and honored to join this webinar of Meralco on the Interruptible Load Program, or ILP. Again, I'm Mark Christian Maroliano, OIC Section Head and Senior Science Research Specialist under the Power Generation and Supply Development Monitoring Section of the Electric Power Planning Development Division of the Power Bureau of the Department of Energy. And I'll be presenting the Luzon Supply Power Outlook uh, for the information of all the attendees and potential ILP participants in the under Meralco. So the interruptible load program is not just a just recently implemented program in the country. Actually, it has been operational in Visayas, which was started by the Visayan Electric Company, or VECO, um, in 2019, and then later on was adopted by its sister company, Davao Light Power Company, in Davao, to address power shortage in the area by allowing participation from large load customers in reducing the system demand that leads to supply demand balancing and reduction and effective reduction of possible brownout in their respective area. So when the Department of Energy projected a possible power shortage on 2015, the Department of Energy, which was led by that time by Secretary Petilia, coordinated and joined Meralco on March 2014 to adopt the interruptible load program and encourage their captive and contestable customers to be part of this demand side management program of Meralco. With the directive from the Department of Energy, Meralco raised an initial 115 megawatt of the loading capacity in 2015. Coming from the establishment around Metro Manila, uh, who carried system burden and participated in the ILP to, to their voluntary operation of their respective generation set. And now we are in this webinar. We are looking forward to have more participants in this ILP uh, or this interruptible load program of Meralco. So the Department of Energy is supportive to this activity of Meralco to give a cost by giving the attendees, or specifically the potential or even the existing participants of this ILP an overview of the power outlook of the Luzon grid and why we need to have this ILP in order for us to prevent further impact on the system balance of the grid and eventually to reduce its impact to the economy of the country. On the next slide, these are just my uh, two points in this presentation. First, I'll be briefly discussing the overview of the power sector, and then after that, we'll directly dive into the Luzon power supply and demand outlook. So for the power sector overview, I'll just introduce the energy agencies and corporations that are involved in the power sector. First, led by the Department of Energy, which supervise the restructuring of the power industry, establish the wholesale electricity spot market, doing the energy policy planning, which includes the power sector, and also the consumer education, and also doing the IEC, or information education and communication campaign of all policies that we are doing in the department. Also, we have ERC, an independent quasi-judicial regulatory body that promotes competition, ensures customers' choice, and penalize the abuse of the market in the power sector. Next, we have the NPC, or the National Power Corporation, which originally have the generations and the transmission sector, but when the IPIRA was established, they still continue the generation and selling of the electricity, but only for the off-grid or missionary areas only. They provide perform missionary electrification on those areas or island areas that are not connected to the main grid. Then we have the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, or PISAL, that manage the NPC assets and liabilities and transmission companies pending privatization. So they handle the NPC privatization process, NPC debt and IPP contracts, and as well as the universal charge. We also have the TransCo, or the National Transmission Corporation, which was created for the transfer of the ownership of the transmission facilities, but it was later on transferred to the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines after the concession agreement way back in 2009. So right now they handle the peak oil fund administration, and then we have the National Electrification Administration, or NEA, that handles or supervises the operation of the electric cooperatives, and they do the review and upgrade the regulatory policies to enhance the viability of the electric cooperatives in terms of their operation. Next is we also have the NGCP. It's mentioned the operation and maintenance of the transmission facilities was later on transferred from TransCo to NGCP. So they handle the system operation and transmission network as a network provider. And then we have also, since we have the electricity market, we have created through the IPIRA, the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation, or PMC, which governs the WESM, or wholesale electricity spot market. And then later on, the market operation was separated from PMC and have its own entity. So it's now called the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, or IMOP, that handles solely handles the market operation. So with that, we have also some of the participants, specifically for the generation company, like Boite, San Miguel, First Gen, Minergy, and others that handles the generation or the creation of electricity business. And then for the distribution utility, we have two groups: the private investor utility owned owned utilities, or PIOUs, wherein the host of this event, Meralco, is included, as well as some of the PIOUs in Visayas, the Visayan Electric Company in Cebu, and the Davao Light in Davao. And then we have the electric cooperatives in your respective provinces. Like, for example, Ormeco, Eleco 4, Agelco 1, and some Celco. So these are electric cooperatives that also do the distribution business uh, in the provinces. So to give you a glance of what the power sector industry is, was during pre-PIRA, way back in early before 2000. So before, the system is vertically integrated, meaning the Philippine power is handled by the government in terms of the operation of the generation sector under the National Power Corporation, or NPC. So either through its own generation plants or its contracted capacities with the independent power producer, or IPPs. And then also NPC handles or owns the transmission system and act as the system operator at that time. And then the distribution utility have integrated function of being single retailer of its franchise area and act as a distributor, supplier of electricity to the retail customer. However, large customers are not allowed to directly contract with NPC through high voltage transmission system. And also during this period, during PIRA, all costs and services in the power industries are lumped into a single bill from the utility, and the electricity rates are regulated by the Energy Regulatory Board, or ERB. So this is the summary of the on the left side. This is a summary of what I've mentioned of what was the setup of the power sector during the pre-PIRA period. We have vertically integrated system, single wholesale provider, regulated distribution and supply by the DUs, bundled costs, and regulatory tariff. And with the passage of the Electric Power Industry Reform Act in 2001, we have now restructured the power sector industry by having the following: competitive generation supply, regulated distribution and transmission system, a liberalization of the power industry, having a unbundled cost, fairness and transparency, and creation of an electricity market. So on the right side, it shows the power sector institutional framework, wherein the Department of Energy oversees the entire power sector, and also it is mandated to do the policy making for the sector. We have a separate government entity, ERC, or the Energy Regulatory Commission, that handles the regulatory support of the um, of the players in the power sector. And then for the power generation sector, we have the government, NPC, NPSAL, and handling the remaining NPC assets, and also the off-grid generation facilities. And through the privatization of the facility, we have the private sector also part of the generation sector in putting up the generation facilities in the country. So, with that output of the facilities, the output are dispatched and scheduled and uh, priced through the electricity spot market, which is governed by the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation, and then later on, the market operation is handled by the IMOC. After that, after clearing the schedule and the pricing in the market, so it will be transferred now to the system operation under NGCP, wherein they are also involved in the energy and reserve dispatch implementation, power transmission, and metering services. So after that, in the transmission facility, we have two two highways for specific group of customers. First, we have directly connected customers. These are customers that have large load requirement that the DUs cannot provide. So that's why they are they're directly getting their electricity from the grid or from the transmission highway. And then we have the other group from the distribution utilities. We're in Meralco and the electric cooperatives handled by NEA are are doing the distribution business for the those customers such as industrial customers, commercial, and residential or household end users. So that's a quick overview of the power sector of our country. So let's now proceed to the power supply and demand outlook of Luzon. So before that, what's the let's check our um, have a uh, information on how what's the power situation or outlook during 2020. So this is the graph shows the situation of the Luzon grid from January to December 2020. So to explain the graph, so the area graph shows the available total available capacity of the country. So it is group. We have three area graphs there for reference. We have the 2019 available capacity. The solid blue area graph represents the actual available capacity on for that year, 2020, and um, the the light blue with broken line represents the projected or forecasted available capacity for the sun grid. And then the line graph represents the system demand. The orange line represents the, the projected peak demand for that year, for 2020. And then the solid red line just shows the actual demand for last year. So as you can see, so we in 2020 the actual peak demand of Luzon has reached to about 11,103, which occurred on March 9, 2020. So this occurred a few days before the implementation of the uh, eh, um, community quarantine nationwide. It should be the projected demand for 2020 should be at 12,285, which is expected to occur during summer period. Uh, Indicatively, it should fall on the mid of May last year, but because of the implementation of the ECQ in the Luzon grid, as you can see, as shown here, the demand should be increasing during the March period as we approach the summer season, because it is common that the demand is increasing because of the increase of temperature due to the summer period. But because of the ECQ and the pandemic, there's a large drop of demand starting from March 16 onwards. So there's a big demand drop of about 3,000 megawatts during the early implementation of the ECQ. And then eventually, during May, the demands slowly increases as we adopted or changes our community quarantine from ECQ to MECQ and eventually GCQ. But as you can see, we have not met the projected demand for 2020 simply because of the impact of the pandemic to all sectors of specifically from the customer side, from residential, commercial, and industrial sector. Because of that, a good thing we didn't experience any red alert during 2020, but we have experienced two recorded yellow alert in early January 2020 and during on June 4, 2020, wherein we have those both yellow alerts were resulted from the insufficiency of operating reserve during that period, during that day, due to unavailable capacity, total capacity from the grid. So this information are based on the reports that we are receiving from the NGCP from their daily report. So this is the situation of our Luzon grid for 2020, last year, 2020. Let's now jump to the next slide, which is the main slide of this presentation, which is the outlook for 2021. So this is the latest outlook that we have from NGCP, dated April 14, 2021, wherein it shows the weekly reserve profile of the grid for the entire year for 52 weeks, meaning the bar graph represents the net of the total available capacity of the system versus the projected system peak demand for that period. Wherein this year we are the Department of Energy forecasted a system peak demand of about 11,841 megawatts for the Luzon grid. So again, to explain further the graph, the three lines along with the bar graph signifies or represents the required reserve requirement, the reserve requirement of the grid in order to have a stable and balanced system for the entire grid. So we have here the red line. It represents the required regulating reserve. This is also known as the load following frequency reserve, which is equivalent to the 4% of the system peak demand of uh, uh, of the period. The yellow line represents the contingency reserve requirement. This is equivalent to the largest running single running unit of the grid. In this case, for the Luzon grid, we have the largest running unit as of now, which is the Sual coal-fired power plant in Pangasinan, which is equivalent to 647 megawatts. So there should be an equivalent 647 megawatts of ancillary service in case the unit of Suwal will be unavailable due to outage. And then on top of the yellow line is the blue line that represents the dispatchable reserve requirement. This is equivalent to the second largest running unit of the grid. So for Luzon, it's also 647 since Suwal has two units of coal-fired power plant at 647 each, 647 megawatts each. So on the first 3 months of 2021, as you can see on this blue bar graph, it shows that we have an adequate reserve level during this period. This is because the demand during the first quarter is low, simply because of the low temperature and low requirements for cooling equipment during this period. That's why we have an adequate reserve, available capacity, and low demand during this period. But as shown above the bar graph are those brackets that have shows the period. These are the power plants or facilities that are having plant outage. Some of them are having extended planned or scheduled outage. Some of them have unplanned or forced outage during those periods. So these are large power plant with large capacity. Like for example, from on top we have GN Power, Mariveles Unit 1 at 316, Calaca in Batangas 300, Suwal Unit 2, which has ongoing outage of I think right now it's still not yet operational at this point, another 647. And another unit of TN Mariveles. So if you add them all, it's a large of capacity that is unavailable in the system, and it gives us a that which if this will be plotted, and as you can see, these outages are extended beyond the summer period. So you can see during the April, May, and June, during the second quarter, wherein we are during this is the summer period, and then this period we are expecting also the occurrence of the highest peak demand of the Luzon grid, as mentioned earlier, the 11,841 megawatts of capacity, which is expected to occur on the week 20. So you can see here that combined unavailable capacity of the generation facility in the Luzon grid, plus the increasing demand of the system because of the high temperature and increase on usage of equipment, specifically the cooling equipment in the establishment. We are foreseeing that there's a possible yellow alert in the grid. So we can see here that on week 15 to week 18, there's a expected yellow alert, uh, projected yellow alert during this period. But a good thing that in reality, based on our monitoring, we have only experienced yellow alert on May 5, just few first week of May. Uh, Due to the insufficient operating reserve during that period. Sorry, uh, yeah, next slide. Next slide. Okay, okay. So again, the slide. Sorry for that. Okay, going back to the slide on the 2021 Luzon outlook. Oops. Sorry. So the Department of Energy and NDCP saw that there's a possible yellow alert during April and early May, which has already occurred uh, last May 5, and also during the second half of May up to mid of June. Again, this is due to the unavailability of the facility, uh, of generation facility due to outage, extended outage, and the forecasted demand uh, in the Luzon grid. Initially, we have forecasted that there's a real red alert during this period, but with a series of coordination meetings with NGCP and the concerned generation companies, which we have started since January, and then we have series of meetings on that the following months up to April. We have discussed the status of the facilities and encourage some of them to fast track the repair of their facility, and also we have also requested some facilities to defer their maintenance because some facilities like um, Suwal Unit 1 and Ilihan Block A were initially uh, have a scheduled maintenance during this period, during the summer period. But with the coordination that we have with them, we have requested them to defer their maintenance and have those activities be conducted after summer period. So to avoid further the red alert in the Luzon. So hopefully we have reduced the possibility of red alert because of that. But we are still monitoring the situation right now in the Luzon grid. As we all know, the temperature is rising, and the demand right now to date is about 11,533. That's all-time high record of the system peak demand in the Luzon. So it's about 300 megawatts short of the forecasted peak demand, and hopefully we won't have any red alert or even rotating brownouts in that upcoming months. Uh, but in case there will be red alert notice coming from the system operator or from the NGCP, so I think that's the time the ILP will be activated through the coordination of the Meralco to the participating customers, and also to the potential participants of this program. So you will be tapped to voluntarily deload from the system so that we can have we can meet system balance and further prevent further impact or uh, prevent further issues in the power industry. So that's the that's the outlook that we have right now from the Department of Energy and from the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. So that's my last slide. So thank you for listening, and I hope we have given you an idea of what the situation that we have right now in the Luzon grid, and what can be your role, the captive customers, the contestable customers of Meralco, to address this possible supply and system imbalance in the grid this summer season. That through your participation in the ILP program, this uh, occurrence will be, or the possibility of brownout will be reduced. So again, thank you for Meralco for giving us a platform and opportunity to be part of this event and for informing and reaching out our large load stakeholders under Meralco franchise. So again, thank you. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you, Engineer Mark, for enlightening us on the power supply outlook. In anticipation of possible energy reserve deficiencies, we would like to take the opportunity to provide a refresher on the Department of Energy's Interruptible Load Program and how this can help us mitigate a lack of supply in the upcoming months. Again, please feel free to type your questions and or comments. We encourage you to identify yourselves so we can acknowledge you properly. Now, we would like to call on our next speaker to share with us the Interruptible Load Program or ILP guidelines and protocols. Let us all welcome on screen Ms. Leticia Sapina, Lead Specialist, Generation and Transmission Economics of Meralco.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I hope I'm coming in clear. So good morning, everyone. Glad you could join the webinar. I am Leti Sapina, and I will be presenting the Interruptible Load Program Protocol. So as mentioned by Mark earlier, ILP is a voluntary demand-side management program that allows customers to operate their gensets and collectively reduce electricity drawn from the grid. The objective of the program is to ration limited power supply during times when power interruptions are imminent. Thus, ILP prioritizes the participation of customers with large loads and requests them to the load when NGCP issues a red alert notice. So ILP was first implemented in Luzon in 2014. The program has been around for 7 years and has helped the grid during red alerts. In fact, in 2019, ILP has spared about 2 million households in Meralco's franchise from rotating power interruptions. So the succeeding slides will show the protocols and compensation mechanism, which are based on ERC-approved guidelines. As some of you may be familiar, there are 5 basic steps to implementing ILP. The first step is notification. Meralco's customer care directly notifies ILP participants through their contact persons of grid conditions and possible ILP activation. Notices, whether yellow or red alert, come from NGCP, and NGCP regularly informs power sector stakeholders and the public of grid conditions. So ILP is activated if there is a red alert, but participants are informed of a yellow alert to advise that if grid conditions worsen, then a yellow alert may become a red alert. Ideally, we strive to provide notifications the day before, if there is a notice or advice received from NGCP. The day-ahead notice is then updated on the current day. However, as experienced, depending on the level of reserves, and if large power plants suddenly go on forced outage, the grid condition for the day can go from normal to yellow to red or normal to red right away. And in those cases, there may be at most 2 notifications to ILP participants, with the final confirmation of the loading 2 hours before schedule. So upon advice from Meralco of ILP activation, participants are requested to immediately confirm their ability to the load as committed and scheduled. For notification, it's important to ensure that contact details of point persons are correct and updated. Confirmation of the loading is also very important because this is the basis for compensation. The second step is activation. Participants can choose between two the loading windows that capture morning and afternoon peak in the grid. So the morning window is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the afternoon window is from 12 noon to 3 p.m. During activation, if you are unable to continue the loading, please inform Meralco's customer care immediately through the hotline. It is possible that red alert hours may be extended. If that happens, ILP participants may also be requested to extend the loading or the load outside preferred schedules. If there is no advice from Meralco on extension, participants should load back to normal after the prescribed loading window. The third step is determination of compensable kilowatt hours. Meralco will read consumption meters of participating accounts at the same time as the usual reading for billing and tag hours of ILP activation. For participants that confirm their intention to the load, the baseline load profile will be compared to actual consumption during the day with ILP activation, taking into account 1 hour before and 1 hour after the red alert hours. So in the chart, the shaded area shows that while red alert hours is from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., the compensable kilowatt hour is computed from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So the shoulders, as what they're called, of red alert hours recognize the time it takes for participants to achieve their committed loading capacity and load back to normal. The fourth step is billing. Meralco will compute the deloading compensation based on ERC prescribed formula and send to the participating customer and/or the rest for verification within 7 days from the regular reading date. The ERC prescribed formula has undergone consultations with power sector stakeholders and ILP participants. Participants are compensated for maintenance cost and the generation cost of fuel, which is based on previous month diesel prices in the city or municipality where the participating customer is located. That is net of the participant's average electricity rate. The final step is settlement. The signed conforme must be returned to Meralco within 8 days from receipt. Upon receipt of the signed conforme, Meralco will process payment within 30 days. So that's it. It's a very quick presentation of the protocols. That ends the portion. Just a few more reminders. If you are not yet a participant, please join the program. If you are an existing participant, we encourage you to update your participation details if deemed necessary. And if you are a contestable customer and interested to join, please finalize the tripartite agreement with your res. So that's it. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to chatting with you during the Q&A.
Thank you, Letty. Now I am sure you have a lot of questions given the earlier presentations. So at this point, we will now proceed with the Q&A portion. Allow me to call our panelists. Larry Fernandez, Vice President and Head, Meralco Utility Economics. Engineer Joey Alonzo, Energy Management Head from Meralco Networks Group. Mr. Anderson Ongsiping, Competitive Market Group Operations Management Head of Meralco. And of course, our earlier speakers, Engineer Mark Maroliano from DOE and Ms. Letty Sapina from Meralco. Again, feel free to type your questions and our comments. We encourage you to identify yourselves so we can acknowledge you properly. I shall now read out the comments and questions for our viewers. May I now have the questions, please? Okay, to start with the first question, I think first question is, we are having power plant but not connected to the grid. We are using for in-house power and now it is on standby mode. So what are the approvals we have to take to connect to the grid? I believe I suggest you coordinate this with your relationship manager so we would know what's the purpose of this question, and hopefully they could provide you the appropriate steps moving forward. Thank you. Okay, I think this next question should be answered by Miss Letty. What rate or kilowatt? What rate per kilowatt hour we will get under ILP?
Yes, thank you for that question. The compensation for participation to the ILP is based on the ERC prescribed formula, which considers maintenance cost, um, the generation cost of fuel, which is defined as the average diesel price in the participating customer's city or municipality, net of the participating customer's average electricity rate. So once you participate in ILP and ILP is activated, Meralco will compute your compensation based on the ERC prescribed formula.
Thank you, Miss Letty, for that wonderful answer. So to move on, I think this can be answered by Engineer Mark Maroliano from DOE. About 3 weeks ago, Luzon Grid was placed under yellow alert by NGCP. Isn't this unusual in this time of pandemic where commercial and industrial buildings have slowed down or even stopped operations, thus resulting to a lower kilowatt demand? If this is a supply issue, what steps are being taken or have been taken to address this? This has been a yearly concern except at the onset of the pandemic in summer of 2020. Thank you. I believe this is my customer, Sir Chris Quevedo from SM. Sir Mark, hopefully you could answer this question. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark, for that question. Um, yeah. As I have mentioned earlier, we have experienced an actual yellow alert on May 5, and it's actually caused by insufficiency of operating reserve due to some unavailable generation facilities, and also there's a gas restriction from the Malampaya facility on that day. Yeah, I agree that yeah, we are still in the pandemic, and yet we have experienced that yellow alert. As I've mentioned earlier, it's uh, we have two causes. Insufficiency of supply from the generation facility and increasing demand uh, in the system. We are now in the summer period. That's why we are the demand is now increasing from right now at average of 10,000 this May, and we are expecting that we might reach the forecasted peak demand of 11.8 um, by this month because of the high temperature, and that causes increase in consumption from the end users. So despite that we are having a pandemic situation in the country, still um, there's a huge consumption from the consumer side, because right now we are gradually moving towards a increase in consumption due to the GCQ announcement early this month. So some offices, some establishments are now operating, have increased their operation. Uh, so uh, those are the reasons why we have experienced those yellow alert. So to further avoid that, we have to secure that we have sufficient supply coming from the generation facility, meaning they have the facility should be available and operational this season, especially this summer period, and hopefully we have a lower demand um, in this coming months, in this coming weeks. We have in the previous announcement of the DOE, we are in the forecast of Pag-asa. There's an expected La Nina for the April, May, June period, but uh, I think mas mas maiting or mas mas ramdam natin yung summer kaysa sa La Nina impact. So that's the reason why we have increased the demand and energy consumption in the country. So I hope I have answered the question of your customer. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark, for that wonderful explanation. So to move forward, do we have the outlook for Malampaya outage? I think this can be answered by Engineer Joey.
Thank you for the question, Mark. Yung Malampaya outage kasi we rely on the advice of our supplier, which is First Gen, on a daily basis. So when you are asking for an outlook, hanggang dun lang yung visibility namin on a daily basis, and as we speak nga, there is still some constraint in the plant. So that's as far as I can answer your question, but perhaps Mark has can add something as the DOE may have a broader visibility on the Malampaya. Thank you.
Engineer Mark from DOE, can you add on to that answer, please? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. To add to the response of Sir Joey, we are closely coordinating with the stakeholder handling the Malampaya gas facility, the specs shell, the shell company. So right now, aside from the restriction that occurred last May 5, due to the reduction of the gas supply, we have not yet received any update or further outlook on the availability or even the possible depletion of the Malampaya gas in the coming years. So, but in preparation for the depletion of the gas facility, the Department of Energy has contingency programs for that. Wherein there's an ongoing program called the Philippine Energy Contracting Rounds, wherein the DOE calls for investors to have service contracts for the exploration of new gas supply around for those areas or potential areas that have gas supplies in around the country. So hopefully we can have that coming soon in case the Malampaya gas supply will be gradually reducing its output and eventually will run out its gas supply. Hopefully we can have new facilities, more than one, equivalent to Malampaya gas facility in the future that will provide indigenous gas supply and provide the needed fuel to our gas facility in Batangas, Ilihan, and for first gen, for future gas power plants in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark, for that additional info that you have provided to the audience. I hope we will have a new generating plant that could help us avoid red alerts in the future. So two more questions. I think this is related to each other. So first question is, what is dinginin again? And from Franz Elcid Sanchez from James Hardy, Philippines. Sir Mark, ano po yung ibig sabihin ng dinginin? On week 24 to 25 po, kasi gray color na lang siya sa graph. Thank you po. I think this can be best answered by Mark Marliano from DOE.
Thank you again for that question regarding the presentation of the outlook. And I was not able to explain further the dinginin. Dinginin in the presentation represents the committed power project, GN Power Dinginin coal-fired power plant. It is currently located in Mariveles, Bataan, and it's two units of 668 megawatts of capacity. The first unit of GN Power Dingin is now on testing and commissioning stage, and we are expecting to have the unit available and commercially operational by June. Actually, we are expecting it to have it earlier, but because of the delay caused by the pandemic, wherein we have issue, the management has experienced problem on recruiting foreign nationals, technical advisors in the commissioning and the construction of the facility, as well as the securing spare parts from other countries. So that that's why the commercial operation of GN Power Dinginin was adjusted. But the plant now is on testing and commissioning stage. They are coordinating with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines for their ongoing testing. And if there will be no further problem in the last stage of their testing, we can have the facility on full load 600 addition. That's an additional 600 megawatts of capacity that will be added in the grid. That's why NGCP had it a gray bar graph on top of the green. It signifies that it's not Dinginin is not included in the total available capacity from the existing facility, all existing facility in the Luzon bid. So sineparate na lang muna doon sa graph just to show that this will be the impact of GN Power Dinginin in case it will be available and operational by June. So hopefully this facility will be helping us in the Luzon grid to avoid further yellow or red alert. So that's the additional 600 megawatts. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark from DOE. Hopefully, this will push through. So, Ms. Letty, the next question will be for you. Are rates for compensation for those who participated in ILP already updated? I understand these rates were established years ago. Thank you again for the question, Sir Chris. Very active po dito sa ating webinar. Ms. Letty?
Yes, thank you for the question. And you are correct, Sir Chris. The rates are based on the 2015 resolution of ERC. In that resolution, what was set by the ERC is the fuel consumption rate in liters per kilowatt hour and the rate for the maintenance cost at a peso per kilowatt hour. But the generation cost of fuel is actually reflects current prices of diesel prices since they are based on the preceding month where ILP was activated. So yes, to answer your question, the formula is based on the 2015 ERC resolution.
Thank you, Letty, for that answer. To move on, I think this can be answered by Sir Larry. Hi, good day. I would like to ask if joining in ILP is mandatory for manufacturing plants.
Hi, thank you, Mark. Thank you also for the question. This was always a concern from our customers from the start of the implementation of ILP here in Luzon. But we made it a point listening to the feedback from customers that the ILP program will be voluntary. It's voluntary to sign up for the program, and it's also voluntary to activate once there is a need to activate. But given that, while we wish to emphasize it's voluntary, we will really strongly encourage all customers to sign up and as much as possible be ready to activate if there is a need. Because the more customers that are available in the program, the more effective it will be. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that answer. Let's move forward from Mr. Muggs Salvio of Sonic Steel. Can we stick to the deloading window if we can join the ILP even though there may be some cases that the yellow or red alert will be extended? I think this can be answered by Ms. Letty for the protocols and guidelines.
Yes, thank you for that question. So if the red alert will be extended, Meralco will again ask the participant if the participant is willing to still deload during the extension. So since ILP is a voluntary program, the participant can inform Meralco that they will not be able to participate if the red alert is extended. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Thank you, Ms. Letty, for that wonderful answer to that question. All right, we would just like to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed guest from the Department of Energy, Director Mario Marasigan, CESO 3, Director, Electric Power Industry Management Bureau, Department of Energy. Sir, we are very honored to have you join us today despite your busy schedule. Sir, if you don't mind, may we include you as our panelist in our Q&A session? We'll wait for your response regarding the joining to the panelists. Okay, moving forward to the next question. Okay, is there a minimum or maximum megawatt that the company could be deloaded? I think this can be answered by Larry.
All right, thank you, Mark. So right now, we do not have any minimum or even a maximum for participation in the ILP. Nagkataon lang that for operational effectiveness, we began the program with the larger customers or the customers with the larger gensets, again to maximize the effectivity of the program. But we welcome all participants regardless of the size of the deloading. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Larry. Let's move on to the next question from Robert, Aztec Power Philippines Incorporated. Apologies for joining 30 minutes late. It's okay, sir. No problem with that. What is the power demand required to join the ILP? Also, is this mandatory or voluntary? Sir Robert, I believe this is a voluntary program. You could provide your power demand that you would like to be deloaded. So let's move on to the next question. From Michael of Laguna. Do we have upcoming new power plants nearing completion to address this tin reserve? I believe this can be answered by Engineer Mark from DOE.
Sorry, can you repeat again the question?
Okay, to repeat the question, from Michael of Laguna, do we have upcoming new power plants nearing completion to address the tin reserve?
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that question. And yeah, the Department of Energy is monitoring the development of the upcoming generation facility in the country and for the Son grid. Um, Specifically, since we have great demand that we need to supply, so we are really monitoring the development of new facilities. And as I mentioned earlier, one that we are looking and monitoring now is the GN Power Dingin um, coal-fired power plant in Mariveles, Bataan. Wherein they are targeting their commercial operation this year for both units, for both two units. And also, aside from GN Power Dingin, um, we are also looking forward for the completion or operation of Ingrid diesel power plant in Pililla, Rizal. So it's a modular facility with total capacity of 100 megawatts for phase one. They are targeting their completion also this May or June. And aside from that, we have few RE facilities that are also expected to be operational um, this 2021. Despite of the impact of the pandemic on the construction, or the development of the facility, we are we're glad that the investors or the generation proponents are really pushing towards the completion of those facilities despite of those challenges brought by the pandemic. So I hope that I have answered the question on what facilities are we expecting to meet that to address the thinning reserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark.
And
I
Mark,
believe.
may I add?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. As mentioned by Engineer Mark, there are several new facilities coming online, and we'd also like to report that on the part of Meralco, we have one new supplier that started commercial operations last day one. This is the Power Source First Bulacan. It's a solar power plant, 50 megawatts, located in Bulacan. So since the start of this month, it has been providing the grid additional new capacity of 50 megawatts. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that additional information regarding the new Bulacan Solar that Meralco is with. So to move on, I think this can be answered by, again, Engineer Mark of DOE. Is the 11,841 megawatt forecast system peak already based on the normal operation in the Luzon grid, wherein the pandemic issue is no longer considered? Engineer Mark?
Okay. Okay, thank you for that question regarding the demand. Yeah, to give you a background, the Department of Energy prepares the annual demand forecast for the three grids. It's included in the annual publication of the Power Development Plan or PDP of the Department of Energy. And um, the demand forecast is included in that publication. As for the peak demand of 11,841 megawatts, um, uh, it was it was formulated based on the impact of the pandemic last 2020. So, meaning that demand is this 11,800 is not the normal peak demand for the Luzon grid. We are really expecting of about 12,000 megawatts plus of demand this 2021. But because of the impact of pandemic, um, we have adjusted the calculation and also factoring in the GDP from the provided by NEDA. We have calculated the demand will be a bit lower than the expected demand for 2021 for normal condition. That's why we have a reduced demand of about 11,800 megawatts this 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark, for that answer. So again, to move forward, I think this can be answered by Mr. Anderson on Siping. To avail of the ILP, do we need to qualify first on the rest? And should our power meters be capable of DOU for the billing? Mr. Andy?
Good morning. Thank you for that question. So if I actually try to interpret your question, I can see or I can interpret it in two ways. So the first is you are currently a potential customer who wish to join the retail market. Or number two, you're an existing contestable customer and you wish to join the ILP. So let's go through them briefly. So for the first scenario, if you're a potential contestable customer, so in order for you to switch to the retail market, you first, of course, need to have a retail supply contract with the rest. So this retail supply contract, very briefly stated, is the energy contract you have with your retail supplier. And this contract that you will be able to have should be able to detail all of the existing provisions, especially with your power needs. So in this case, usually this is only between the customer and the retail supplier. So the in this case, the distribution utility, in this case Meralco, is not actually privy of the details. So in order for you to be able to join the ILP, especially once you're a contestable customer, it should be very clearly stated, especially for these, of course, as we understand the ILP itself, the motive of this is for to alleviate demand, especially once supply is actually low. In your case, or if you're a participating customer who wish to join the ILP, it has to be clear, especially if there is a potential impact to that. Now, as to your second question, related to the time of use or the TOU meters, once you wish to join the contestable market, there's actually very explicit requirements, especially when it comes to the meters. In this case, you are required to have load profile capable meters. And if you wish to join the retail market, the first thing you actually have to do is to contact your relationship manager, especially since they will be able to walk you through the process, and one of which is also the requirements for the meters. So I hope that would actually clarify and answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that answer. I believe Director Mario Marasigan is with us to be a part of the panelists. Good morning, Director Mario. To move on, from Cedric, what would happen if very few establishments volunteer for the ILP? Director Mario, maybe you could answer this question.
Question, no? Of course, more than willing and Department of Energy, if any contestable or big end user would participate in the ILP program. And then the first thing is, of course, coordinate with your respective DU. In your case, it could be Meralco. Make the necessary arrangement and welcome to the group. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Mario. Okay, let's move forward. I believe this question is from Pure Gold. I think this can be answered by Engineer Joey. As impacted by the drop of demand due to ECQ, some of our facilities were experiencing high voltage, especially during the nighttime. Is Meralco aware of the events and what actions were being done to mitigate such occurrences? Engineer Joey?
Thank you, Mark. Naturally kasi if the demand drops, yung voltahe talaga tumataas. So during the height of the pandemic, we really we received a few complaints of that nature, ano. But that should not be prolonged. I mean, that should be corrected and can be corrected. So kung may issue, yung particular customer who asked, you can always reach our call center, or our relationship manager would be within reach, I believe, 24/7, so that we can really focus on what caused the problem. So ganun kasi yung behavior ng system natin. If the demand drops, naturally yung voltahe tataas, but there are measures we can make to still maintain what is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Joey. Okay, next question. Why is the notification only 1 day prior? Customers need to be able to forecast their production schedule also. Ms. Letty, your answer, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. That has been our struggle actually in implementing ILP. We really want to provide customers, participants, more lead time in preparing for the loading. However, we are dependent on information, notices, advice from NGCP. So the day ahead notice is actually included in the Philippine Grid Code. So, but we are working with them to look for ways to provide more or earlier advice. But as explained earlier, if large power plants suddenly go on forced outage, and then that would impact the level of reserves, we can start the day with a normal condition, but towards the midday, we might be on yellow or red alert. So we are all really constrained with the notices that we are able to provide the participants. I think Sir Joey would like to add.
I think Engineer Joey will like to add to that question.
Maganda yung question na yun kasi that is really the actual occurrences, no, so far pag nagkakaroon ng yellow, even red alert, no. Ang problema kasi natin yung force outage is primarily causing the yellow or red alert, and unfortunately we cannot predict force outage. So in fairness to NGCP kasi, yung status ng plant they would know day ahead, okay pa. But pagdating ng the following day, ayun, nag-trip na. So that's causing us the problem na minsan talagang 11th hour namin napapadali na notice. So I hope yung mga customers natin can understand that, and we're always trying to really communicate and collaborate with NGCP to correct or improve that.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Joey. I think Director Mario from DOE would like to add on to that. Director Mario?
Thank you very much for the question, no? And I wish to contribute to the conversation. Actually, our system operator, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, is coordinating closely with our market operator, the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines. And that and the IMAP is actually the operator of our wholesale electricity spot market. And offers come a day before. That's the first offers, no? Although there may be adjustment just before the actual day happen, pero yung unang determinant natin on how much would be the demand and how much would be the supply comes a day ahead based on the trading participants natin sa wholesale electricity spot market. Therefore, IMAP immediately coordinate with the system operator, NGCP, then NGCP now informs all the concerned distribution utilities. So yun po yung ating current market situation. And hopefully, very soon we can, if I may promote, no, mag-change na po tayo ng ating market situation. Magkakaroon tayo ng, although still within the purview of what a day ahead projection, we will have a 5-minute trading interval. And in that sense, if we are successful in implementing that 5-minute interval rather than an hourly interval, then mas maganda ang magiging resulta natin sa forecasting. So this is already happening. We're just waiting on the fine-tuning for the new market model natin. In fact, we are very soon coming up with the actual, when will this new market design happen? So wait na lang po, malapit na po yan. Thank you very much for the question again.
Good to know, Director Mario, for that info. So please allow me to go back to the question of Cedric. What would happen if very few establishments volunteer for the ILP? I think Engineer Joey could answer this question.
Thank you again, Mark. ILP is voluntary in nature. Alam naman natin yon. But you know, it does a lot of buffer support in terms of supporting the grid, no? So malaking bagay yung pag-volunteer ninyo in participating in this program of the Department of Energy. Ang mangyayari kasi if fewer participants would be joining this program, very helpful program, we will be constrained to drop more circuits. Aside from that, we will be constrained to also prolong the brownout. Kasi konti yung yung nagpa-participate. So load reduction kasi ang nito ang objective. So parang na lang para sa bayan to, lalo na ngayon, no, we are saddled with this pandemic and a lot of circuits already have requested for exemptions para sa mga storage facilities, vaccination centers, much more that we need the ILP participant during this pandemic. Kasi we cannot compromise yung mga hospitals, storage facilities primarily. And even the vaccination centers, alam naman natin walang nagbabakuna sa off-peak sa gabi. Sa umaga, nagbabakunahan sa peak load. Yung sinasabi ni Letty kanina na windows na between 10 to 12 and 1 to 3. Those are the peak times wherein vaccinations are taking place. So if we only can appeal for us participants to really be proactive on this program at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Primo. Nice convincing power. So I hope more ILP participants could join us para we could avoid any deloading that could happen during red alerts or yellow alerts. So to move on again, from Isagani Vasquez, RFM Kabuyao, what if we plan to install solar panel as an alternate source of power in our plant and to take part in the ILP program? Does it will affect our contract with the rest on the demand capacity? I believe this can be answered by Andy Ong Siping. Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you for that question. So I think to probably discuss or describe the question, we should actually look into this in two forms. The first is the question on the installation of the solar panel, and the second is the impact to the ILP program. Now, as to the question, the first question, probably in order to be able for us to answer that question, we should actually look into, as I briefly described earlier, the retail supply contract. So the retail supply contract is the contract between the customer and the retailer. And this actually includes all the provisions necessary in order for the customer and the retailer to actually agree on the settlement in terms of the energy requirements of the customer. Now, if we look at this particular question in terms of installation of your own solar panel, this obviously has an impact to your existing supply curve in such a way that this may actually impact, for example, your peak loads, your especially looking at the nature of the solar panel, usually is actually in full load, especially during peak conditions. Now, I would also actually suggest that you should be able to discuss this with your retailer, especially if this is just a new installation that you intend to have. As if we look at it from that perspective and actually proceed to the second question, does it have an impact to the ILP if I participate? Again, the answer would be yes. Although we as the distribution utility, as Meralco, we are actually not privy with the details of the retail supply contract. I can actually imagine that there will be an impact, and I guess this should be discussed really thoroughly with your supplier. So take, just to have a takeaway or a key takeaway, when you have any kind of changes or modifications to your existing load, please contact your retailer. They should be able to describe and discuss with you the details of this, especially if there are needed provisions or additional provisions when it comes to this. So all in all, I just want to commend you for actually looking into or siguro investigating joining the ILP, since as we know this is a program to alleviate the grid, especially when it comes to these cases where there is actually a deficiency. And probably number two, I also want to commend you for your efforts for promoting sustainability through installation of your solar panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that answer. Um, Please allow me to promote also our Spectrum, our subsidiary who could provide you the solar panels if in case Mr. Isagani. And I think installing solar panels is a very timely manner. So you could address the concern with the EENC law, the new EENC law. So to move forward, what is the implication date? Sorry, what is the implementation date for the new rates in the ILP compensation formula? I believe that this can be answered by Larry.
Got this, Mark. So I'll try to respond, but then maybe I can also ask Letty to add. Um, the ILP compensation formula is contained in the rules of the ERC. So they were promulgated in 2015. So we've been implementing those rules since then, and we'll continue to implement them until they are amended by the commission. So Letty, you might wish to add.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, thank you for the question. That's correct. The rates that are for ILP that are currently being used is based on the 2015 resolution. But the customer might be referring to proposed rulemaking of the ERC. I think it was in 2020, there was a draft, but current and the industry stakeholders as well as participants were asked to submit comments. But this is still under review of the ERC. So as of now, we will still be using the 2015 resolution.
Thank you, Larry and Letty, for that answer. So again, to move forward from Pure Gold, with the energy plans drawn out to cope up with the demand, what would be the impact to the power cost? We believe that as of now, our power cost is the highest in Southeast Asia. I believe this can be answered by Sir Larry.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, this is a very important question. A large, as described earlier by Engineer Mark, a large component of our power sector now is the wholesale electricity spot market. And just like any market, the price in the market is affected by the supply and demand situation. So everything else the same. If the demand goes up, there is pressure for prices to go up. And if supply goes down, then there is also pressure for prices to go up. So recently, we've seen that there is pressure while demand has been growing. Siguro I'd also like to add to earlier questions on the demand. While demand right now may be constrained because of yung nabanggit po ni Engineer Mark that peak demand for Luzon is now at around 11,500 megawatts. That is already higher than peak demand for 2019. So while we are still in a pandemic, lumalaki pa rin po ang ating peak demand. And we've seen that the demand has been driven by both households and the recovery of industrial loads. So habang tumataas po yung demand at meron pa rin pong mga power plant outages, so in the short term, we have been seeing increases in the spot market prices. And these have been reflected generation charge of around to captive customers. For those being supplied by RESES, your generation charge may have a different formula. So in the short run, we've seen increases in the power prices. But actually, if we look, for example, the rates for May 2021, it is still lower than the rate for May 2020, and it's even lower than the rate for May 2019, May 2018, and May 2017. So your rates being paid today is lower than what were being paid in May 2017. While there is, maybe we can call it conventional wisdom, that our rates in Asia and the Philippines are the highest in Asia. One reason for this is because the rates for other countries are heavy subsidies. In other words, the rates being charged to consumers in those countries are below cost and is being funded by other means, mostly from the government. But here in the Philippines, we do not have those subsidy support, and rates are reflected based on the actual cost of service. But even then, we have seen that over the years, power prices have been going down. As mentioned, the rates here 2021 are even lower than in 2017. So thank you.
Thank you for the explanation, Larry. I believe the next question can be answered by Director Mario. Another question from Michael of Laguna. Don't we have an oversight committee for the power plants in order to anticipate their maintenance efforts for their facility? It's obvious we will really have reserve problems if power plants simultaneously do their maintenance activities. Director Mario?
Yep. Thank you very much for the question. It's actually a very timely question. No? We have an oversight committee in the form of the DOE, no, together with our stakeholders. In fact, last year we have issued what we call as the Grid Operating and Maintenance Program, wherein the guidelines that we have set provides for the call for both the system operator, which is the AGCP, and also the market operator, which is the IMO, to collaborate in the formulation of a 3-year rolling Grid Operating and Maintenance Program. Ano po yung Grid Operating and Maintenance Program? Dalawa pong component yan. Yung ating GOP or Grid Operating Program pertains to the schedules ng planned outages or preventive maintenance services ng ating mga planta. While the Grid Management Program pertains to the maintenance and repair naman pagdating sa ating mga transmission system. Pag pinagsama natin yan, yun atin ng Grid Operating and Maintenance Program, which is subject to approval by the DOE. At sinabi po natin doon sa ating guidelines to, ito yung pinaka-highlight nun. Hindi po pinapayagan ng Department of Energy na mag-conduct ng planned outages or preventive maintenance during the summer season, particularly the months of April, May, and June. Yun po yung ating nasa rules. At ang pwede lang pong payagan ay yung mga hydropower facilities at this time kasi kulang naman tayo sa tubig, tag-init, wala pang ulan. So ganun po yung ating sistema na sinasabi natin. At nakasulat na po yan. Unfortunately for this year, nagsuffer po tayo masyado sa epekto ng ating health pandemic. Yun ho mga naka-scheduled na preventive maintenance natin last year, nagkaroon sila ng extended outages dahil sa kakulangan na rin ang ating mga supplies coming from abroad as well as the foreign national experts na dapat magbibigay ng mga maintenance program. Kasi ito po mga program na to ay nakakontrata na sa ating mga power plants at yung hindi natin inaasahan na pagla-lockdown. Hindi lang po sa Pilipinas, pati sa ibang bansa, yung mga foreign nationals hindi makapunta rito dahil hindi sila paalisin sa kanilang bansa or hindi kaagad makapasok sa Pilipinas. So yun po yung naging problema natin. So kung kaya kailangan po natin maisakatuparan talaga yung ating guidelines for the Grid Operating and Maintenance Program. At dahil sa sitwasyon nga ngayon, continuous po ang coordination ng Department of Energy. Nag-conduct pa kami ng focus group discussion regarding that para lang po ma-address yung current situation. So nasa iba po tayong sitwasyon ngayon. Pangalawa, nais ko rin pong ipaalam na very soon, na-approve na po yung ating tinatawag na establishment ng reserve market. Ito po ay kapatid ng ating wholesale electricity spot market in terms of the energy supply. Meron po siyang kakapatid na reserve market. Ano po yung reserve market? Yung po ating mga power generation facilities will be subjected to tests. At lahat po ng facilities na pwedeng mag-provide ng reserve services or yung ancillary services, pwede po silang mag-trade ng kanilang energy both in the energy market and the reserve market. Kaya lang, at any given time, they have to make the choice. Saan sila mag-trade? Doon ba sa energy market or sa reserve market? So with these two policies, makikita po natin kung ano talaga yung actual situation natin, not only on a daily or hourly basis, but actually coupled pa po ng ating change sa wholesale electricity spot market ng 5 minutes trading interval. 5 minutes na po natin makikita kung ano mangyayari sa market natin. So with all those policies and guidelines already in place, ang kailangan na lang po natin ay implementation. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Director Mario, for that explanation and clarification. Okay, to move forward, a question from A. I understand that there are lots of solar power plant being installed here in Luzon. Are these already considered in the whole power supply outlook? I think this can be answered by Engineer Mark from DOE.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for that question. For the solar PV, those that are already operational, yes, kasama na po siya or factored in na po ito sa outlook na present kanina. So as you can see, despite of that, inclusion of those RE facilities, including intermittent facilities like solar and wind, we're still expected to have those weeks na tight yung reserve level. That's why we are expecting yellow alert on those weeks in April, May, and June. So yun, those are factored in based on the simulation of NTC. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark. To move forward again, from June of Laguna, is there a premium in signing up in ILP? Also, what is the minimum requirement in signing up ILP in terms of contracted capacity? If there is such a requirement, I believe that this can be answered by Ms. Letty.
Okay, so I'll answer first the second question on the minimum requirement. So as mentioned, the ILP is a voluntary program, and while we, for operational purposes, we target the customers with large loads, we welcome actually any level of committed loading capacity from the customer. There is no minimum requirement in terms of the capacity. On the first question, I may have to ask for help from my fellow panelists on what is the if there is a premium in signing up in ILP.
Sir Larry.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Letty. So first, if you sign up, you will have our heartfelt thanks. But more seriously, once you sign up for ILP, what Meralco practices is to deprioritize your circuit for any deloading if NGCP calls for a deloading. So kung magkaroon po ng pagkukulang ng supply sa grid at kailangan magbawas ng demand, uunahin po yung ibang circuit at ihuhuli yung circuit nyo as an ILP participant, because we understand that in exchange for the deloading, you will do a voluntary deloading under the ILP. So hindi na kailangan i-turn off yung inyong circuit kung magkakaroon ng pangangailangan. So and this mechanism will work best if there are as many ILP participants as possible. So again, we would like to encourage as many participants to sign up in the program. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. I think this is a Bayanihan Act if you will join the ILP ILP program of DOE, so we could avoid red and yellow alerts in the future or for this coming summer months. Okay, a question from Anonymous for DOE. Is there any power outlook forecast for the year 2022 to 2025? I believe this can be answered by Director Mario.
Thank you very much for the question. Long-term planning na yung tinatanong sa atin, no? Well, actually, year in, year out, ginagawa natin yung ating annual demand and supply outlook. Nagkakaroon din tayo ng forecasting ng mas mahaba, pero part na yan ng ating power development plan as well as the Philippine Energy Plan. So yung actual outlook natin on a weekly or even daily basis only comes on the prior year, no? Pero as far as the overall demand and the overall supply na tinitingnan natin over a 5-year, 10-year, meron din po tayo niyan. In fact, ang ating planning horizon ngayon ay up to 2040. Wherein we have already indicated ano yung potential demand natin for the country, not only in Luzon, but for the country, of course, subdivided into the 3 main grid regions, as well as the potential supplies that are coming in based on the committed and indicative projects presented to the Department of Energy by our power producers. In fact, nagpo-post kami sa DOE website ng mga committed and indicative projects, as well as kung ano yung latest na power development and Philippine Energy Plan. So anybody can download the files, have a look on it, and then annually naman merong mga revision if necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Mario, for that. Next question is, meron po bang effect ang mga series of power fluctuation or even brownout during the ILPR's program in terms of cost? Engineer Joey, I think you could answer this.
Yung effect ba, Mark, yung tanong niya, effect ng brownout o fluctuation sa cost?
Yes, Engineer Joey.
Yeah. Technically, pag during ILP at participant ka at nagkaroon ng fluctuation, madidisrupt lang naman ng kaunti yung operation mo kung sakali. So kung sakaling yung genset mo would be impacted by that because of the fluctuation, magsa-shutdown yun, magti-trip. So technically magre-restart ka ulit. So kung cost siguro ang impact, I would say na madidisrupt lang yung participation mo and yung registration ng metro, yung output mo would be disrupted. So in terms of cost, baka yun lang yung impact niya. Kasi pag brownout naman, sinabi nga ni Larry kanina, that if you are a participant, that would give us we will tag your circuit as a last priority circuit to be dropped in case of deficiencies. So yun yung isang premium niya, no. So pag kaya pa naman ng demand ng Meralco, meron pa tayong maibabagsak at hindi ka naman kailangan i-compromise, ipipreserve namin yung circuit mo. So, ganun lang. I think yung fluctuation na tanong mo, yun lang ang effect niya na nakikita ko pag naapektuhan yung genset mo to shutdown.
Thank you, Engineer Joey. I think Miss Cecil Domingo would like to add on to the question for the ILP premium. Miss Cecil?
Yeah, yes, Mark, thank you. Dugtungan ko lang yung sinabi ni Joey kanina, di ba? Yung premium at saka yun nga, pagka na MLD ka, MLD, manual load dropping, na-explain ni Joey, kapag kulang talaga mapupuwersa tayo yung Meralco, papatayan yung buong circuit. For example, nandun yung mall mo sa buong circuit. May MLD ka, malo-load drop ka, papaandar ka din ng genset, di ba? Versus, sasali ka sa ILP, pag sumali ka sa ILP, yung buong circuit na yun, syempre mababawasan ng mga load doon. So, ikaw mismo, halimbawa yung mall mo, instead na buong mall yung walang power, makakapili ka, pwedeng 50% isali mo. So, hindi buong mall lang nawala ng power kapag nasa ILP ka. And second, magpapatakbo ka rin ng genset, pero babayaran ka. Yun yung premium nun, may compensation na approved ni ERC. So, dito sa kabila, MLD ka, buong mall, walang power. Tapos, papatakbo ka rin ng genset, wala kang bayad. Dito sa ILP, percentage lang, may bayad pa yung genset mo, di ba? So, win-win sa ating lahat to. So, for every circuit kasi na na-spare ng Meralco from load dropping, mga 100,000 customers ba yun, Joey? So, ang laki. Kaya nga para sa bayan din to. Ang laki nung natulungan natin, yung mga small customers na walang genset. So, lalo na yung mga small businesses, wala namang genset. So, nakakatakbo pa rin sila. And then tayo naman may genset, nakakatakbo pa rin yung ating mga malls, di ba? So, win-win for all of us. So, sali na kayo. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Cecil. I think there's a question. What are the main reason why high peak of kilowatt demand last March 2020? I think Engineer Mark from DOE could answer this. Maybe he has info or details for this.
Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, this was presented during the yung 2020 power situation, the actual situation last year. So, as mentioned, the demand, the highest peak demand for 2020 was at 11,103 megawatt, secured on March 9, 2020. So, at that time, normal pa yung condition ng grid natin. Pa-increase pa lang yung demand natin, para up pa lang, papunta pa lang tayo ng summer. The temperature is now increasing. The consumption is also increasing. But at that time, nung nag-implement ng ECQ, biglang bumagsak na yung demand. Yun yung pinakamataas na the actual demand for that for last year. So yung forecasted na 12,000 demand, hindi na natin na-reach because of the ECQ all throughout after the implementation from March up to the end of the year, hindi na natin na-reach yun. So yun na yung pinakamataas, 11,103 megawatts. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mark. Sorry, apologies. I'm on mute. Okay, so to move forward, we could entertain the last two questions. The first question is from Anthony Mirza of Toshiba. Good morning. Can we know the possible maximum capacity can be added in the grid based on the current number of ILP participants enrolled? Again, good morning. Can we know the possible maximum capacity can be added in the grid based on the current number of ILP participants enrolled? Engineer Joey, can you answer this?
Based sa data natin na yung actual na nakikita namin na nagpa-participate na na-record so far since 2019 is that around 160 megawatts yung naka-harness namin na capacity. I think that is only 40 to 50% of the enrolled capacity. So I think if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if Larry can provide the latest figures. Nasa 300 to 400 megawatts yung yung maximum capacity. But pag kinol mo yan, siyempre may mga constraints yung mga participating customers. They could not really volunteer or give up yung talagang committed capacities nila during the day. So nakikita namin ang na-harness lang talaga around 40 to 50%. So pag sinabi natin na 300 yan, 400, so around 150 to 200 yung actual na nare-realize natin. And that goes a long way. Kasi 100 megawatts correspond to an hour of brownout. So imagine if we can harness that 300 megawatts, no? So that's 3 hours na pwede nating ma-free yung mga customers brownout.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Joey. Ms. Letty, I think you want to add on to that.
Yes. So just to actually, Sir Joey is correct. Right now, the committed signed up capacity is around 400 megawatt. But based on experience, not everyone that signed up is able to participate. So that's why we are encouraging more customers to sign up, so that even if not everyone participates, at least we are able to increase participation.
Thank you, Ms. Letty. The second question is from Mugs Salvio. Another question from Mugs Salvio of Sonic Steel. How do we benefit in joining the ILP program? How many % do we gain in the deloading for 3 hours in terms of our bill? Can you give us a sample computation? Sir Larry, can you answer this?
All right, thank you, Mark. Thank you also for the question. So the main benefit really of joining the ILP program is to help alleviate the effects of rotating brownouts, not just for other customers, but also for your own operation. Since as ILP participants, you will be deprioritized. Your circuit will be deprioritized for any load dropping. And then in terms of the impact of ILP compensation, when you activate, it will really depend on how much you activate and the duration of the activation in relation to your total. Maybe we can ask your relationship manager to coordinate with you directly, so that we may have a simulation of what the compensation will be for you and the impact on your total bill should you join the IL. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that question. For that answer, sorry. There's a bonus question. I think this can be answered by Andy Ongsiping. Would like to quickly use this question to plug for signing of CC and RES before transferring to RES. We were part of the ILP with Meralco. So what will be our current status with the ILP?
Thank you, Mark, for that. Just to quickly recap, once you, or at least if you were a captive customer or a customer that was supplied by Meralco previously, and you have an interruptible load program with Meralco, as soon as you switch to the retail market and now you have a retail supplier who will provide for your energy needs, it's just important to note that your previous contract will actually be effectively void and terminated, especially since the previous contract will now evolve to a tripartite agreement. In this case, an agreement between you as the customer, with Meralco, and with the retail supplier. So in this case, you will also actually need to sign a new contract. And actually, this is almost actually extremely similar to your previous contract. The only difference is that there's actually the involvement of the retail supplier as one of the vital parts of the program. So just take note that in terms of the ILP, this time the retail supplier should be the one to declare your energy needs. And if an ILP is actually implemented, there will be changes in terms of who will actually be declaring on your behalf. So I just want to actually use this opportunity to probably thank our REST partners for also being able to join us today, and also would also like their request or would also need their assistance to actually assist our customers in signing a new contract this time under the tripartite agreement. So there. So just a quick key takeaway. Once you sign a tripartite agreement, if you're a contestable customer, definitely you will need the rest participation. And there, also, of course, for our rest partners who are here, so please assist our customers as well. Again, this is actually a Kabayanihan program, so we would also like to thank you if you would be able to assist us in this program, especially since this is siguro for the security na rin of the grid. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that. Rest partners, hopefully you could expedite in signing with our customers with the tripartite agreement. So we could avoid the red and yellow alert this coming months. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much to our panelists for participating and our esteemed guest from Department of Energy for joining us today. I think that was a productive discussion. Clearly, we have a lot to discuss, but we hope that we were able to clarify and cover most, if not all, of the topics. We hope that with all of us working together, we can make an effort to mitigate energy supply challenges as we also still face the biggest challenge brought about by COVID-19. If you have further questions or concerns, we encourage you to contact us, your relationship manager, so we can be of help. You may also visit our website at www.corporatepartners.meralco.com.ph. We also encourage you to join our exclusive Viber community for business customers, wherein you can receive relevant updates regarding your business accounts. Just scan the QR code being flashed on the screen. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon in our future meetings and webinars. We hope to do this more often. That is why we are posting the link to our survey form at the Q&A panel. Please share with us your thoughts on how best you can gain more useful information and tips from the Meralco Corporate Partners. I am Mark Wilson C., your host for today. Good morning again. I hope you all keep hydrated and, of course, safe this summer.